To speak on the Corrections Legislation Amendment Bill 2025, and I might just start with a couple of comments that the member for Laverton made around the Crisafulli government. And the Crisafulli government is seeing some very promising trends when it comes to the reduction in crime in Queensland since they came to government. And maybe it's time that the Allan Labor government actually focused on the needs of Victorians, the priorities of Victorians when it comes to community safety. A crime crisis in the state of Victoria under the Premier's watch. In fact, a 19% increase in crime since the Premier took over. 19% since the Premier took over.
Member for Wendouree.
That's impressive.
19% under the Premier's watch. Victoria now has reached the highest level of criminal incidents on record under the Allan Labor government. So instead of focusing on what other governments are doing around the country, governments that are actually taking a crime crisis seriously, putting community safety first, and seeing green shoots when it comes to seeing crime reductions in the state of Queensland, maybe the Allan Labor government could actually focus on community safety rather than trying to tear down other governments in this state which are doing the hard work and actually ensuring that community safety comes first. Acting Speaker, the bill today establishes more severe penalties for prisoners who attack prison workers. And we know, and we've heard today, some very concerning statistics, very concerning around the fact that in the past year alone, there have been 442 assaults on staff, including 10 sexual assaults and 6 incidents requiring hospitalisation. Now, these incidents not only endanger the lives of staff, but also disrupt the security of the entire prison. And the bill before us today seeks to amend the Serious Offenders Act 2018, the Sex Offenders Act, Registration Act 2004 and the Corrections Act 1986, with the aim of this bill to ensure that safety risks from serious offenders are appropriately managed, appropriately denounce and deter assaults on custodial workers, and make minor amendments to parole and other provisions that are not operating as originally intended. I think the key point here, Acting Speaker, is this is a bill that makes some moves towards protecting prison officers to ensuring that their safety is put first, but it really does only make minor amendments and does not go as far as what those officers, what those workers in our prisons would like to see. The Serious Offenders Act is the legislative framework providing enhanced protection to the community by requiring offenders who have served custodial sentences for certain serious or violent sex offences to be subject to ongoing detention, while the Sex Offenders Registration Act establishes a legal framework to monitor individuals convicted of certain sexual offences, aiming to enhance community safety and prevent recidivism. The Corrections Act is the principal legislation governing the operation of correctional facilities in Victoria, including prisons and the management of offences. Acting Speaker, there are many parts of this bill that the opposition believes is worthy of support. But, of course, as with every piece of legislation that appears to become before this parliament, there are many elements of concern, some of which I'll come back to shortly. But most importantly, Acting Speaker, people have the right to feel safe in their workplace, and that is especially the case for those Victorians, those very hard-working Victorians who take on the tough job of working in the corrections space. And these men and women, as we have heard from the data, as we have heard from the seriousness of the offences against these men and women, are suffering in our corrections system under the Allan Labor government's watch. And as I said, over the past year alone, there have been 442 assaults on staff in our correctional system, including 10 sexual assaults and 6 incidents actually requiring hospitalisations. It's simply not good enough, and the extent that some of the measures in this bill will help and deter and prevent these types of incidents is worthy of support, but it does not go far enough. In particular, there is great importance to strengthening the sentencing outcomes for individuals who cause injury to a custodial officer, ensuring that this act will be considered a prison offence and will attract the presumption of a sentence of cumulation. Now, it's very important that cumulation of sentence ensures that it will act as a deterrent to prisoners. And of course, strengthening the operation of certain elements of the post-sentence scheme for serious sex offenders is also a sensible measure to ensure safety risks posed by these convicted offenders can be appropriately managed. However, it is concerning that the scope of this bill does not cover all staff working in a correctional facility, which seems a pretty significant oversight by the government given the staffing requirements in these facilities. And we've heard a lot today about the importance of retention, of attracting new staff into correctional facilities. But when the bill does not go far enough to protect the wide amount of roles within correctional facilities, you have to ask, is the Allan Labor government actually serious about protecting workers regardless of their role in the corrections system? And we know that the staff within our corrections system are very, very disappointed in the Allan Labor government. We saw a vote last month that had a resounding 94% no confidence vote against the Corrections Victoria Commissioner, Larissa Strong. And these changes come as we know we're going to need a greater need for corrections workers. We know that we are going to see an influx. We dragged the government to the table when it comes to somewhat strengthening Victoria's bail laws, still not as strong as what they were when they changed them over a year ago. But we know that we're going to see an influx in prisoners. We know that the government has a plan to shut down Port Phillip Prison, and we know that there are not enough workers to manage this in the system. Yet we have a government today putting forward a half-hearted bill, a bill that does not actually deal with the fact that it does not expand the definition of worker within our corrections system. And that's why I commend the work of the member for Caulfield in bringing forward an amendment that would expand that definition, a custodial worker on duty or another person employed or engaged to work in a prison while working in the prison. And I note that the union has been very, very clear in its support of this amendment, saying that we are told that the bill was okay, but there needs to be more immediate consequences for assaulting an officer, and the fact that it does not go far enough in the definition of what a worker is in our corrections system. So we have a situation where the union is asking for the government to do more to protect the very workers in this space, the very workers that they claim they are trying to keep in the system, to attract new workers into the system. But as always, Acting Speaker, this is just another example of the Allan Labor government bringing forward a bill that relates to our criminal justice system that does not actually take the reform needed, not only to keep our community safe, but keep those hard-working corrections officers, those hard-working people who work within our corrections system, safe. Acting Speaker, we have seen time and time again this is a government that is not serious about prioritising the need of community safety in this state. This is a government that has overseen a crime crisis grow and grow and grow. As I said earlier, a record number of criminal incidents in Victoria. We have seen aggravated burglary, home invasion climb by over 160% under the Allan Labor government. We have seen under the Premier's watch crime increase by 19%. Yet, while all those statistics were readily available, we could hear it day in, day out from those in our community telling us that they did not feel safe. What does the Allan Labor government do? They weaken Victoria's bail laws. Weaken bail laws. They have in place machete laws that do not actually ban the holding a machete, despite the fact we have crime after crime in this state with people wielding machetes. People do not feel safe in their homes, and this is a government that is refusing to deal with the crisis. Unlike the Allan Labor government, we will actually reform Victoria's weakened bail laws, and I commend the member for Malvern for his immense amount of work. We will reinstate the offence of committing an indictable offence whilst on bail. We will require offenders to show a compelling reason to be granted bail again. We will remove the current exemption for youth offenders who breach bail again, and we will put in place tougher bail tests for robbery and burglary. That is the difference between the Allan Labor government and their weak bail laws and a new, fresh government, a coalition government that will actually prioritise community safety in this state.
Call the member for